Angels manager Ron Washington threw Luis Guillorme all the way under the bus on Tuesday night. I don't think I've ever heard a manager be as blunt with a criticism of a player in a circumstance where it was arguably the manager's fault in the first place. Let's walk you through this situation. Cardinals, Angels, it's the bottom of the eighth inning. The Angels are down 7-6 with Luis Guillorme, left-handed batter at the plate. Left-handed relief pitcher Jojo Romero in the game for the Cardinals. It's a 1-1 count. 1 out in the inning. Tying runs at third. The go-ahead run is at second base. Yes, it's a lefty-lefty matchup, as you'll hear Ron Washington allude to. But this was a situation where Jojo Romero had just walked 2 batters to set up the bases-loaded scenario. He was having trouble finding the strike zone. He had one of the walks occur on a pitch clock violation on a 3-2 count, where he was paying too much attention to the base runner at second base, Zach Neto, who was doing everything in his power to attract some attention, and it worked. And Jojo Romero did not start his windup or his delivery to home plate before the pitch clock expired, which led to another base runner. Bases were loaded. Ron Washington calls for a suicide squeeze in this situation with a pitcher who just wasn't really finding the strike zone very consistently. And Romero throws a pitch that is 1.5 feet off the plate. Guillorme lunges at it to try and bunt at it, try to make some contact because it is a suicide squeeze. And, of course, it goes disastrously wrong. Cardinal catcher Pedro Pages just has to simply wait for Neto to come meet him in front of home plate, tags him out for the second out, and then Guillorme strikes out a couple of pitches later. Cardinals get out of the jam. Cardinals win the game 7-6. That was the Angels' last real opportunity and their best chance to come back and make something of this game. Ron Washington calls for an absolutely needless risk in that spot, particularly with a pitcher who was wild at the time, was not in the strike zone consistently. The one thing you got to have if you're going to call for the suicide squeeze is a buntable pitch. And yes, it is the job of the hitter in that moment to do anything in his power to get contact and avoid the situation that took place. But for Ron Washington to offer absolutely zero accountability of his own role in what happened there, I've never heard anything like it. Listen to this courtesy of Bally Sports West after the Angels lost the Ron Washington postgame. The question had to be asked, and it was. You'll hear the question asked by the reporter and then Ron Washington's surreal answer following the Angels' loss on Tuesday night.
Guillorme missed it, but why did you want to call for that?
Lefty on lefty. I didn't sink a ball left-hander. I didn't want him to hit into a double play. He can handle the bat. He didn't do the job. It wasn't anything I did wrong. He didn't do the job.
That is unbelievable from Ron Washington. It wasn't anything I did wrong. He didn't do the job. Pointing fingers at the player, which at times is necessary in this business. At times, you do have to say, hey, you need to be accountable to a mistake you made on the field. Certain managers try to go about that in different ways, maybe with a little tact. In this case, there was no tact. There was no subtlety from Ron Washington, which would be a little jarring to hear, even if it was Luis Guillorme's fault and not the manager himself who called for a needlessly risky bunt in that situation. Where, again, if he's not lunging at it to try and bunt it, he's taking that pitch. It's a 2-1 count, and you very well may have Jojo Romero of the Cardinals walking in the tying run. Instead, they lay an absolute gift on Romero's lap and in the Cardinals' laps, and Romero able to come back, strike out Guillorme, get out of the jam. Cardinals win the game. I know the Angels aren't going anywhere this year, but this is borderline craziness to hear from Ron Washington. Same manager who called out another young player, Joe Adell, earlier this season for a base running mistake. And honestly, when he did that, I think he had the public sentiment on his side. Say, see, that's how you handle it with a little bit of tact. Call out a player who is not performing up to expectations, doesn't have his head in the game. That's what he did with Joe Adell earlier in the season. Base running gaff, said that can't happen. It's a mistake that we'll have to correct. But this was simply for him to say, well, it's not anything I did wrong. Don't know what you're looking at me for. That's just unbelievable. I've never heard it from a manager. Let's take another listen.
He can handle the bat. He didn't do the job. It wasn't anything I did wrong. He didn't do the job.
Oh, my goodness.
Some good at-bats.
I would have rather went to the ninth inning with a 6-6 lead than to went to the ninth inning the way we did. It didn't work out.
Yeah, he was absolutely on his heels. I don't even know what he's talking about, a 6-6 lead. It doesn't make any sense. The reporter tries to follow up, and he cuts her off because he knows he's cooked. He knows that was one of the dumbest sentences that ever came out of his mouth. Ron Washington, a national treasure, the gift that keeps on giving from a content perspective. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this. If you're a Cardinals fan, if you're an Angels fan, if you're a baseball fan in general, what did you think? If you saw the play, Luis Guillorme, look, he tried to bunt it. It was 1.5 feet off the plate. I don't think this was a situation that you can very reasonably say it was a mistake on the player's behalf. Now, if your rule is, look, you have to get it down, no ifs, ands, or buts, or you at least have to make contact to avoid a sitting duck at home plate, that is why they call it a suicide squeeze. I get it. But I look at Ron Washington and say, you didn't need to call for that. You're playing a little too hard in that spot. There's only one out in the inning. There are a ton of ways you can score against the Cardinals and Jojo Romero in that spot after he's already given up a double and walked a couple guys in the inning. Let the Cardinals off the hook. It was a bailout move by Ron Washington, and then to not take any responsibility after the fact is jarring. I have never heard anything like it. Sam Blum, who covers the Angels for The Athletic, posted this to Twitter. Luis Guillorme did what Ron Washington did not. He took responsibility. And to be clear, he did not have to. That's commentary from Sam Blum, and he's 100% right. Quote, I haven't seen what Washington said. He made a good pitch. I didn't get it down. I've got to try to put a bat on it. That's it. That's the commentary from Luis Guillorme, who is the absolute bigger person in this moment. But let's be clear. He said he hadn't seen what Ron Washington had said when he was addressing the media and answering the questions about it himself. That is crazy. It wasn't anything I did wrong. Who, me? No, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. It wasn't me, though. Ron Washington, an all-timer. I mean, this is an all-time moment to me because of the delivery of that line. The way he said, it wasn't anything I did wrong, when in reality, it completely was a needless risk that he took to call for that squeeze. And even if you didn't feel that way, even if you felt like, nope, our rules as an organization are you get the bunt down. You just do. There's no choice in the matter. The circumstances of where the pitch fell doesn't matter. You just do it. And that's how you feel. This is still jarring to hear a manager come out and say what was said right there. You can say, look, he didn't get the job done. You just got to get a bat head on it. You can say that. You can't say, well, it wasn't anything I did wrong.
Bat, he didn't do the job. It wasn't anything I did wrong.
I mean, that is crazy. I love it. I cannot get enough of that from Ron Washington. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel if you enjoy MLB content, particularly if you enjoy Cardinals content, but branching out for this video, talking about it from the Angels' perspective, I've never seen anything like it. I've never heard anything like it. Ron Washington, the gift that keeps on giving.